So we ended up getting into our accommodation at about 9 o'clock at night, can you believe? Which thankfully wasn't too bad because it was still daylight there because it was summer. And, the sun went down at 11 o'clock at night or something. But oh my goodness, we were tired. Hey adventurer, I'm Bridget from Throw Your Leg Over. And today we're talking about planning your distances for each ride. Because I think when you make a mistake here, it can turn what's meant to be a fun adventure into you thinking, why on earth did I think this was a good idea? And so by the end of this episode, you'll know how to plan your route with confidence so that you know that it's doable and it's going to be enjoyable. So let's get into the tips. The first thing is to know how long it will actually take to ride somewhere. You might be using your navigation software or Google Maps or something to work out where you want to ride, to work out your routes, and that will tell you how long it will take. It will give you an estimation, but it won't factor in some important things. The first thing is your skill level. If you are newer to riding, you're probably going to be taking it a bit easier. If you are highly skilled at riding, then you might get there a bit quicker. Also, it's not going to factor in the stops that you want to make along the way. Obviously, you've got to get photos of your bike from every possible angle, with just the background different each time. And of course, you want to stop for coffee or water or whatever the case may be. If you're riding with buddies, then lunchtime chats might take a bit longer than you anticipate, depending on how good the conversation is. Sometimes I think that that's half the fun of a ride, is those chats that you have during the breaks. There might be some roads that are new to you. You're not familiar with them, and so you kind of ease back a wee bit just because you don't know what to anticipate up ahead. So that's going to slow you down a wee bit. Obviously, if you're riding on twisty roads with some hairpins, sharp corners, they are going to be way slower than if you're on lovely sweeping curves. And inevitably, there are going to be things that along the way that slow you down. There might be roadworks, there might be traffic, wandering animals all over the road, the occasional kangaroo, whatever it might be. There's usually going to be something that you didn't expect that will slow you down. When we were in Norway a couple of years ago, we were riding up the west coast, and oh my God, that is just incredible scenery. If ever you get the chance to do that, I highly recommend. But on this particular day, we had to catch a couple of ferries. They have a lot of ferries and bridges on the west coast of Norway because the coastline is so, I don't know what the word is, in and out. So you can take the long way round and just follow the road, or you can take the quick way and catch a ferry or cross a bridge or go under a tunnel or whatever the case may be. So on this particular day, we were heading up the west coast and we had to catch 2 ferries, which was fine, but we had to wait a long time. I think one wasn't too bad, but the second one we were waiting there for about 45 minutes just waiting for the ferry. And we hadn't realised this, and we hadn't factored this into our plan for the day. So we ended up getting into our accommodation at about 9 o'clock at night, can you believe? Which thankfully wasn't too bad because it was still daylight there because it was summer. And, the sun went down at 11 o'clock at night or something. But oh my goodness, we were tired. We were really tired, and it was wet, and we were a bit miserable by the time we arrived. So there are going to be things that Google Maps or your navigation software doesn't take into consideration when it's telling you how long it will take to get where you're going. And if you listen to episode 5, that was my chat with Mary Knights. She runs the Facebook community Women Two Wheels, And her biggest tip was to have a plan but be flexible. And I think that Mary's tip is absolute gold. And so my tip to you is just factor in a bit of extra time in your plan. And say, just ask yourself, if this ride takes an hour or two longer, will I still be okay? And if your answer's no, that might cause a bit of a problem, then you'll probably want to look at shortening your distance on that particular route. My second tip is to know your bike's fuel tank capacity and its range. Blaze is my bike. He is a BMW F700 GS, and he has a 16-litre fuel tank. And I know that I can comfortably ride about 350 kilometres on a tank. So that's my basic calculation for when I'm riding. Alan's bikes have bigger fuel tanks. Beauty's a 1200 GS, and she has a 20-litre tank. Scarlett is a 1200 GSA, and she's got a big tank. She's got a 33-litre tank. But some bikes have really small tanks, some as little as 5 or 6 litres. And if that's you, if that's your bike, then you need to be super aware of where fuel stations are, because that's the next part of this equation. You need to check where the fuel stations are along your route. And the most important question to ask yourself is, if one of those is closed, assuming it's in a little town somewhere, if that's closed, will you have enough fuel to get to the next fuel station at the next town? Super important. Tip number 3 is plan for your energy levels, not just the distances. And this is where the night before might become important. Just have a think about how well you slept. Did you drink any alcohol the night before? Are you feeling a bit seedy this morning? Have you been feeling a bit under the weather generally, like health-wise? Maybe you're feeling a bit flat before you've even kicked your stand up. So if this is the case for you, if you are not feeling great in the morning before you've even kicked your stand up, then I'd suggest to you maybe just see if you can do a shorter day. And the next time you're riding a full day, just pay attention to around what time of day your focus drops, when your body starts to feel a bit heavy and a bit ugh. And also your mood, like, do you find that it gets to a certain time of the day where you're just feeling a bit flat, or maybe even a bit snappy, like a bit easy to get irritable? Just think, how long did it take to get to that point where you're not firing on all cylinders, so to speak? Because it might happen sooner than you think. And sometimes that last 100 kilometres of the day can feel twice as long as the first 100 kilometres. For me, after lunch is when my energy levels drop, especially if I've had a bigger lunch and it's a warm day or a hot day, siesta time's calling. So what I've done is I've actually changed how I do things. I tend to have smaller lunches and snacks during the day so that I don't have that big, heavy, full belly at lunchtime, and that helps me keep my energy levels up and kind of steady. I do remember last year, so 2025, we were in Europe for months and months and months, and I do remember there was a moment where we'd been on the road, like we'd been riding every day, like day after day after day, and they were kind of big days. They weren't just morning rides, they were all-day rides. And I was just starting to feel this general kind of bone weariness. And I said to Alan, I need shorter rides, or I need a break. I just need a chance to rest and let my body re-energize. So your options, if you're feeling a bit flat or your energy is just down for whatever reason, maybe just plan shorter back-to-back days instead of one big day. Split it out over 2 days if you can. My next tip for planning your distances is weather conditions can change everything. It might be the same distance, but it'll be a completely different day depending on the weather. If it's windy, oh my God, headwinds are exhausting. Crosswinds just play havoc with your head. Just trying to keep your bike on a good line in a crosswind is challenging. If it's hot, that drains your energy, drains your focus. If you want some tips for keeping cool on hot summer roads, listen to episode 6. I'll pop a link in the show notes for you. If it's cold, your body just kind of feels tense and your reaction times might be slower. If it's raining, obviously you're going to be going slower. It takes more focus to just keep yourself safe, and fatigue's going to hit you sooner. So a 400-kilometre day in beautiful, lovely conditions is going to be very different to a 400-kilometre day when it's cold and wet and windy or super hot. Another thing to keep in mind, and this relates back to my Norway story, is just keeping awareness on the seasons and when the sun goes down. And daylight saving, that's caught us out a couple of times when we've been in a different state or ridden into a different state and didn't realise that we had to factor in daylight saving. So they're my tips for planning your distances. Sometimes I know that we have very little flexibility and we do have to be somewhere at a certain time. It might be that your accommodation is locked in and non-refundable and 550 kilometres away and you just have to get there. If that's the case, just make sure you're taking regular breaks and try to do everything you can to look after yourself and keep your energy levels steady over the whole day. Alternatively, before you head off, before you're booking accommodation, maybe you want to think about booking accommodation that is flexible and can be changed, or don't book accommodation and just give yourself the freedom to stop 50 kilometres, 100 kilometres earlier at a different place to stay there. It just can take the pressure off. And just because you can doesn't mean that you should, you know? What kind of riding do you really want? What kind of day do you actually want? Do you want to be just hammering through the places, or do you want to slow down and really experience and enjoy where you are? So, recapping, you want to know how long it will actually take to ride from A to B, not just what your navigation software is telling you. You want to know your bike's fuel tank capacity and how far it can get you, what your range is. You want to plan for your energy levels and your distances. And you want to factor in weather conditions. Check the weather forecast. There's no prize for doing the biggest kilometres in a day, but there is a lot of joy in doing it your way and arriving safe and sound. You want to enjoy it. That's what adventures are all about. So plan your distances for the adventures that you want to do. I'd love to know if you've got any tips for planning your distances. Anything that you always factor in when you're planning your routes. I'd love to know. Send me a message, send me an email. I'll pop the links in the show notes below. I'd love to know. And I want to give a shout out to one of my listeners, Michelle Holmes. She sent me a beautiful email. She said, I just wanted to let you know how much I'm enjoying your podcast. I just binged all the episodes on my drive to and from work today. So much of it resonates. Thank you, Michelle. That is a beautiful message. That means a lot to me. I love knowing that what I'm sharing with you is resonating and relatable and you're getting something from it. So thank you. I'd love to hear from you as well. If you want to send me a message, please do. Subscribe to the podcast so that you know when the next episode is out. And if you'd like to leave a review, that would be amazing. And that would also help other women find this podcast. And I will see you next week.